today's episode of On the Ropes with Josh Shernoff, I sit down with Justin Roberts. Later, I shine a future star spotlight on Mark Haggerty. But right now, Justin Roberts is on the ropes. Please welcome Justin Roberts. Justin, thank you for being here.
Josh, it's good to be here on Fight TV. Hello, everybody watching.
So I mentioned some of the things you've been doing. What else has there been other than boxing and MMA? What else have you ring announced?
In the past 5 years, I had the chance to do acting, voiceovers, TV shows, movies, and then I tried out announcing for CBS Sports Boxing and Muay Thai and arm wrestling. I mean, anything that's popped up that needed a ring announcer that sounded fun, I said, okay, cool, I'll give it a shot. And now, full circle, back to wrestling. Here we are.
So you are just a traveling ring announcer, and now you're traveling, but you're only traveling with AEW. What does it feel like for you? Obviously, you know, your time spent in the WWE, you were very successful there. You went on out into the independents, out into everything we just mentioned. What is it like for you to know now you're back? You're back on television, TNT, live. You're going to be standing in the middle of that ring tonight. How are you feeling?
5 years ago this month, I walked out the door in Atlanta and thought, okay, my career as a ring announcer for professional wrestling is over. I got to live out my dream. I got to do everything imaginable, unimaginable. I had an awesome story. I even wrote a book about it and told my story because I closed the book on it. I thought my wrestling career was over. I thought that was the end. Fast forward to All In. It began again, and here we are at AEW where I'm going full-time here. I mean, this is awesome. The feeling in my stomach right now is something that I never thought I would feel again. The excitement is like I've never done a big show before in my life. That's how I feel today. I went to bed last night, no problem, but all throughout the night I was dreaming of the show. All I was thinking about this morning, I kept waking up and going back to sleep. I couldn't stop thinking about this. I was so excited to be here tonight, and I am excited right now. I'm excited for the world to see what's going to happen tonight for the first ever AEW Dynamite.
Now, take people through as ring announcers. Some people, there have been very famous ring announcers out there. Yourself, in my opinion, you're one of them. What is the preparation for a ring announcer?
You know, I used to be in a groove, I'll be honest. I was doing it 4 nights a week, every single week. I was just in a groove. I would go out there and wing it. And now, I'm a little bit rusty, I'm not going to lie. So the preparation is becoming familiar with the talent, because a lot of this talent is talent that I've never worked with before. So I need to get in that groove. I need to find certain introductions that fit them, that go with the reaction that they get from the crowd. So I need to work on my timing. I need to work on pronunciations. I need to work on everything as if I've never done it before, with the exception of a few guys that I've worked with before.
So how do you come up with something like that, with depending on who the athlete is that you're announcing to the ring? Maybe you hold their name extra long, maybe it's shorter at a certain time. Is that something where you try it out, like you said, to see what fits their character, what maybe goes along with the music? How do you determine
That's how
that?
It starts. It starts with me standing in the ring, listening to the music, watching them come out, hearing the crowd, and that's what shapes that initial introduction. And then doing it week after week as the characters become more familiar with the audience, then they start to cheer them more, boo them more, and with that, I kind of tweak that introduction. So it's very organic. It's not something you could plan out. It's not something you could practice. It's about feeling out the appropriate introduction for that entrance.
Now, you were invited to be the ring announcer at All In Chicago. You were dressed, if I remember correctly, in all white for All In. Am I getting the...
All In was all black.
All black, and then all white was for
Double or Nothing was all white.
Okay, it was all white. Okay.
Vegas.
There we go. Okay, that makes more sense. So otherwise the internet was
Can't
just going to tear me
wear
apart.
white after Labor Day.
Okay. So you've been the ring announcer for AEW before it was even AEW. Did you ever think, when you went to that show at All In, when you were asked to be a part of that, did you ever think that just a little bit over a year later we would be here in an arena like this? 14,000 people will fill this arena. Sold out in seconds.
Right.
Did you ever think that this is where we'd be in a year's time?
Not at all. I mean, I went into All In thinking this is my last chance to say goodbye. I'd been on tour with the band Tool, and
really?
It was like, I was doing that for about the past 3 years, and just to be able to go out in front of a wrestling audience, sold out at the Sears Center with 11,000 people, to be able to go out there one last time in my hometown where I grew up in Chicago and do one more show and kind of have that opportunity to say goodbye, to take it in one last time. And there was a part of me that looked forward to it for so long, and I just kept thinking, once this is done, that's it. It's just, that's it. I'm looking forward to it, but once we're done with this show, that's it for wrestling. And the show was awesome. I always say it's probably the greatest night of my career.
Still to come, part 2 of my sit-down interview with Justin Roberts. And when we return, I'll shine a future star spotlight on Mark Haggerty. We'll be right back. Take a trip into the mind of the Meaning, a brand new podcast featuring former WWE and ECW star, The Blue Meaning. We'll cover wrestling, music, movies, sports, and lots of useless knowledge, all contained in the mind of the Meaning. Subscribe now and follow us on social media at Mind of the Meaning. All right, Mark Haggerty, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me here on the Ropes. You are the ring announcer of MLW, relatively new in the position here. So first of all, congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
How did it all come about? You wanting to be, you've been in the business for a few years now. How did that start for you? What made you say, I want to be a ring announcer in professional wrestling?
I tell people all the time, I grew up watching wrestling the same as everyone else. But when I was a kid, kids growing up today, there's so many wrestlers on TV that look like everyone. There's short, fat, skinny, like every kind of person is represented in 2020 in wrestling. But growing up in the 90s, every wrestler on TV was this big muscle guy. And I knew that wasn't me. I didn't play sports. I was unathletic. So from a very early age, I was like, oh, you know what? I bet I could do that. Like managing, commentary, stuff like that. And I gravitated toward ring announcers, and I tell people I think the reason I did that is because, like so many of us, I played with wrestling action figures, and when they come to the ring, you got to say something.
Of course.
So I got in the habit of announcing my wrestling figures, and I said to someone recently, I thought that's as far as it would ever go, and here we are now at the 2300 Arena.
I know. It's incredible.
It's wild.
One of the things that kind of made news was being the first openly gay ring announcer signed to a major wrestling company. What did that mean to you? Was that something that you were worried, like, oh, I don't want to just be, oh yeah, there's the gay ring announcer? But what did it mean to you, good, and maybe even if there was any negative?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some negative with it. It's like when you say anything, the positive is obviously to be a trailblazer in that regard is a big deal. I tell people all the time, if there were more LGBTQ representatives when I was growing up, I might not have gotten into this business at 29 years old, which I did. I'm 33 now, so imagine, like, if there were people like me on TV and I was like, oh, I could be like that, who knows, I might have started this at 19. But it's definitely cool to be a trailblazer. You see people like Jake Atlas with NXT and Sonny Kiss with AEW. And now I'm with MLW. To be the first ring announcer is really cool. And the fact that I am the ring announcer means that I'm on TV every week. Wrestlers, they might miss a week or two here and there because they don't have matches every week. But me, I can say that I am probably the only LGBTQ talent in wrestling that's on television every week, and that's really cool to me. The negative is, of course, like, I don't like those articles that lead with, like, gay ring announcer signs with MLW, and it's like, it's such a weird double-edged sword where it's important to represent people, but at the same time, I want to be judged on my abilities and not based on who I am outside of wrestling, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So being a ring announcer, obviously, played with your action figures. That's really where you honed your craft.
Yeah. I still remember Shawn Michaels from San Antonio, Texas, weighing 225 pounds.
So it's interesting. I wanted to ask you that. Have you ever had a challenging moment when you're in the ring and you're announcing someone out and you're just blanking? I don't know where they're from. I don't know what their weight is. I'm not even entirely sure the name of this guy who's coming to the ring. How do you have anything that you do? Is it just repetition? Is it just going over the names to make sure?
Well, luckily that very rarely happens. I am pretty studious with the note cards that I keep. Actually, think I have my note cards right here for tonight's show. I've got everything that I need to know. But there are definitely like last minute changes where someone comes out. out of order or something like that, or someone was added to the card at the last minute. I did a show for Capital Wrestling recently where I literally had to turn to the referee in the ring and be like, what's this guy's name? Who's this guy again? What's his manager's name? That's a big one, is if someone comes out with a manager that I wasn't expecting, you want to announce everyone. They're there to do a job, but if I don't know their name, I'd rather not say their name than say it incorrectly.
Absolutely.
So things like that happen all the time, and what I tell ring announcers coming up when they ask for advice about not getting things wrong or screwing things up, I tell them all the time, like, just like the wrestlers, they know the spots that they're doing out there, just like I know the words I'm supposed to say, but the audience doesn't know the words I'm supposed to say. So if I trip over something, but I trip over it with confidence, a lot of times that works out. My very first MLW show, I accidentally said... Alex Hammerstone wrestled 2 matches on that show, and I accidentally said he was from somewhere different the second time he came out. And a fan on Twitter called me out, and I really quickly was like, oh, no, he's just so rich, you see. He that's where he was that week.
Yeah, he's got multiple
But that stuff comes up. That stuff comes up.
You mentioned Twitter, so you're on social media. You feel free to plug your social media.
At Mark A. Haggerty.
There you go. What do you think of social media for somebody in your position? You're I mean, obviously you have a great position now with MLW, but you are still brand new in this business. You're in the beginning of your career, which I anticipate being a very long and successful career. But social media, how important is that to the success of your career? And do you think that social media at the same time is kind of a negative to this business?
I think it can be. I just got done telling someone like 20 minutes ago that without my cell phone and without social media, I might not have a career. The advent of Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all those things have really made it so easy to connect with fans in a way that we haven't been able to in the past. I was able to get involved with MLW through my social media and through all the things that I was doing. It's very important, I think, at this point. As I said, it can be a detriment to some people. I actually run a social media seminar that I do. They're called Mark Adam Haggerty Social Media and Marketing Power Hours. And they're just basically like what to do, what not to do, when to do it, where to do it, that kind of stuff. Because, like you said, I'm very new to this business. I'm less than 4 years in, but in those 4 years, I feel like I've been able to maybe not master social media, that might sound a little cocky, but I've been able to figure out what works for me and what doesn't. And I think that that's kind of a niche that everyone needs to figure out. Look, some wrestlers go on there, like your David Starrs and people like that, and they can say a whole bunch of political stuff, and it works for them. Some people, that doesn't work. So you just kind of have to figure out what works for you. But I think if utilizing social media in a positive light, it's been one of the most important things to professional wrestling. It's one of the reasons that pro wrestling is booming the way it's been over the past 5 years.
Absolutely. I want to shift gears to talk right now is not the best example of your attire.
Yeah.
But shows that you and I have worked together in the past, I've always enjoyed just seeing what type of blazer you have or whatever. At what point did you decide that's something that you need to stand out? The mustache as well. You've created an image for yourself, and we've talked in the past about the ties. And,
I love them.
We try to have, even as a ring announcer, even as a commentator or whatever I'm doing, we always try to do something to stand out. Anyone in this business does. Why did you decide the flashy jacket? Why did you decide the mustache? Why did you decide?
Well, I'll tell you, the mustache one is really easy. I was lazy for a few months at the tail end of 2017, and I grew a beard. And then one day while shaping it up, I nicked the beard in the wrong direction. And then I said this to someone, I think I said it to Simon Gotch or someone else that was sporting a mustache, and it happens to all of us the same way. It's like, oh, let me try this out as a joke.
Right,
let me go out into the world with a mustache and be like, what a creep that guy is. And I remember having it for like a few weeks and then a few months, and then it just kind of became part of who I was. So that wasn't really a conscious decision, but it's really worked out for the best. As far as the wardrobe, it started with just here at MLW, I dress far more conservatively.
Sure.
I dress in just basically your business suits and things like that. In fact, tonight I'm wearing a light gray suit, and I'm almost nervous it's too flashy. It's just light gray is all it is. But I think it started. I picked up just this flashy jacket that my boyfriend likes to say it looks like. It looks like his grandmother's couch. It's got like a lot of like paisley and. I picked up one and it got a lot of attention. I picked up a second and it just kind of went from there. I currently have like, I think 32 different blazers in my closet, and some of them I've worn once. I have one that's like pink sequins. I wore it once and it fell apart immediately afterwards, and I was like, all right, I got all I was going to get out of that. But, you know, that too, I don't know if it was a conscious decision, but, you know, you wear something and someone's like, I like that, and you kind of want to keep going in that direction a little bit, so I just kind of kept going with it.
That's interesting, especially with the mustache.
Yeah.
You fell into it, and you are kind of recognizable in that way. What are some of the challenges you've had? You know, you talked about, I mentioned you being in the business for a short amount of time. And some people might be watching this saying, well, 4 years, you know, just about 4 years, that is a long time. And it is. In the span of a wrestling career, when you're in a locker room with people, Savio Vega is there, you know, 4 years.
Exactly. It's nothing.
You know, so.
I mean, even compared to some of the people on our roster, like, you know, your Mance Warners and people like that have been doing this for so long before hitting big, or guys like Dominic Guarini, who before even getting into wrestling have been training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Compared to them, 4 years is absolutely nothing. So,
but still for you, I mean, 4 years is, I mean, that's a nice chunk of your life. So, in that time, what has been the most challenging part? Maybe an experience that was negative, maybe an experience that wasn't negative, but was just extra difficult for you to overcome. What was one of the most challenging experiences that you've had in wrestling?
I think early on, you know, there is this, it's not defined in any way, and it's almost, people would deny it exists, and it does in a lot of cases, but there is this line between the wrestlers, the people in the ring, and then the peripheral talents such as myself and you and referees and people like that. And, you know, wrestlers will tell you all the time, it's like, no, you're one of the boys. And you know, we are part of that fraternity of it. But when you're first starting out, it's just like, you know, you're in this like ultra masculine environment, and I just remember starting out in this business needing to get like, hey, where are you from and what do you weigh? And you just feel like you're stepping on toes and bothering people. I remember that was a real challenge for me starting out. Learning to assert yourself and trusting your own instincts on a lot of things, you know, especially with MLW, where we're given a run sheet, a pretty concise run sheet on everything. I mean, it's a television show, and learning to trust your instincts on certain things, having been in the trenches yourself, knowing that, hey, this is written this way, but maybe if I say it this way, it might come off a little better. So that's been something that I've had to learn over time for sure. So many people in this business are trained wrestlers. So many of my colleagues as announcers, like I can name on like one hand how many ring announcers weren't wrestlers before. You know what I mean? Like so many are trained. So for me to come in, there is this certain hurdle that I've had to overcome being so new to everything. But I like to think that I have. I've been really lucky, though. The challenges that I've faced have been few and far between, quite frankly, and I'm very grateful for that.
What have been, on the flip side of that, what have been some of the, maybe a moment that stands out to you as, at this point, if you had to look back at the 4 years and say, that was the best moment so far in my career, what would you say that was?
Announcing the final round of the Opera Cup during my MLW debut, and I tell people this, I've told this story before, I'll say it now, I don't care. I have had a lot of producers in my ear for wrestling, on small scales, on larger scales. One person that's constantly in my ear is Mike Quackenbush at Chikara. And every producer you work for has a different style. You know, some are a little more rough around the edges, some are really chill. And I'll never forget announcing the main event for the Opera Cup for MLW, a television show. And as soon as I was stepping out of the ring, through the ropes to leave, to go sit back down as the match started, I heard Court Bauer in my ear, just like, yes, hell yes, that was great, that was awesome. And it was this like incredible high that I used to work in the medical marijuana industry. So like this,
you're very well familiar.
So this was a high. Yeah. This was so incredible to me. And then add to that bonus points, Alex, the other big thing was obviously being offered that contract, which when you get into wrestling, no matter what you do, for me as I was like a podcaster, and then I started doing commentary and ring announcing. For me, you think to yourself, wow, it would be cool to get signed somewhere, but you don't think it's possible. Right. You don't think it'll ever happen. There's thousands of people doing what we do. And then what the hell? So that would definitely be it.
Okay. Last thing I want to ask you here is any advice that you would have to someone? You just mentioned thousands of people want to do this.
Yeah.
And that is something, even somebody watching this now, looking at you and you talking about, hey, I did it, might still be going, okay, yeah, you did it. But thousands of us didn't.
Sure, yeah.
What advice would you have for someone to get them, not just work hard, not just keep, honing your craft.
Of course.
But the advice that maybe is going to get that person who should be here one day but is about to quit, about to give up on this business and give up on their dream, what type of advice would you give them?
Well, I would just tell them basically what I did. And what I did is I was working an office job in Southern California, and I got a job working as a dirt sheet writer on the internet. And, so many people do that. So many people have their own newsletters and their own blogs and stuff like that. So just think, if you're watching this and you think to yourself, I would love to get involved in wrestling more, and you're already writing, even a Facebook newsletter, if you're already doing that, then do what I did that. Then I started doing some podcasting. Then I started going to shows like this and going backstage to get interviews. I mean, I didn't do them with Fight TV. I did them with my dumb little podcast.
Not all of us have it. Yeah,
So says Shernoff. But that was it. And it's I always tell people, it's dude, I was a nobody living 3,000 miles away from the place I made my debut. I just went backstage, I did interviews, someone heard that I had a voice, someone saw that I had a suit, and then one day David Adams couldn't announce a show, and I got the call, and that was it. And I was 29 years old when that happened. There's so many people out there that think, and I did too, believe me. I said this to someone recently, I really and truly felt at 28, 29 years old that the prime of my life had passed. I had worked in medical marijuana. I'd worked in politics. I'd worked in hospitality. I'd done all these things. I had my college degree. I was going to be a teacher. I figured everything was in my rear view, and then this happened. So I say to people, it's it doesn't matter how old you are if you've got the drive, and if you're already doing something, if you've got a passion for this, keep following it. And it's not a matter of just work hard, pay your dues, brother. It's just just don't stop. If you get an interview in the can with someone, get another one. Just reach out to people. People are afraid, oh, I'm afraid to reach out to so-and-so because why would they want to do an interview with me? Spoiler alert, people like me, people in wrestling, love talking about ourselves. So I tell people all the time, just put yourself out there. And the one thing that I stress in my social media seminars is any day, and this is for wrestling or anything, if you've got a passion, I don't care if it's professional wrestling, I don't care if it's building model trains. If you've got a passion and you are not doing something every single day of your life to pursue that passion, you're wasting time. And I don't care if it's making a graphic, recording audio, making a video, tweeting something poignant. If you're wasting a day just playing video games, smoking weed, whatever, and believe me, I do all that too. But if you don't do something to further your career every day, that's a slippery slope.
That's very well said. And I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you, Josh. I appreciate that.
Thank you for taking the time to talk with us.
Congratulations on everything here, man.
Thank you.
I love Fight TV. The folks at Fight TV know I love Fight TV.
They're awesome.
Hell yeah,
man. They love you back, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, brother.
When we return, part 2 of my interview with Justin Roberts. We'll be right back. Tonight, I want to talk about one coach in particular. I'm talking about Jerry Lynn. Seen here, not being seen here. The match everyone was talking about was The Undertaker versus Goldberg. It was 1,000 degrees, and it is a well-known fact that the elderly should not be outside in extreme heat.
When that show ended, I thought, okay, that was awesome. Wish we could have more of that, but that was awesome. And I had no idea that less than a year later, AEW would come to fruition and there would be a giant company selling out the Capital One Center here in Washington, D.C., and it's amazing.
Now, when AEW was officially announced and you were contacted to be a part of this company, at that point, did you say, okay, hey, the rocket's taking off here, I'm lucky enough to be strapped onto it, or did you look at it and say, okay, what are we doing here? I don't know what AEW is going to be. Did you look at this and say, man, we're going to go weekly, we're going to be playing arenas here? Did you see it at that point, reaching this point, or was all of this still a surprise to you?
I have so much faith in this crew, seeing what they did at All In, and just knowing them personally, knowing what each person is capable of, how they're great people. They know what wrestling fans want because they are wrestling fans. I left WWE thinking, I've done everything there is to do, I'm done. When they called me about this, I thought, maybe I haven't done everything there is to do. I want to be a part of setting something up that kids today will dream of being a part of in 10 years, giving them an opportunity to say, hey, when I grow up, I want to be an AEW wrestler. I want to be an AEW referee, ring announcer, whatever they might want to be. I wanted to be a part of that and create something with these incredible minds, incredible human beings that are behind AEW. I wanted to be a part of that, and I knew what they're capable of, and TNT every week, it's awesome.
Taking absolutely nothing away from your body of work in the WWE, you will, in the history of the WWE, you'll be somewhere in the middle as a great ring announcer that was there. In the history of AEW, when someone says, who was the first ring announcer? You're that guy. That's a great thing to be a part of history. A question that I had for you was, when you were in the WWE, you were there with a young kid named Cody. Did you ever imagine, looking at him, did you ever think, man, one day, I think everyone looked at him and said, one day he'll be a star. He'll be, you could tell that. But did you ever, thinking back on your interactions with him years ago, could you ever have imagined that one day he would be spearheading, or I guess alongside a few others, this company, this revolution? I keep quoting on this show here, I keep quoting Cody, quoting it as a revolution, but that's what it is.
A revolution.
Did you see that in him?
I remember being on the road the first weekend that Cody came in. I was the ring announcer on Cody's first loop, and he was working Daivari in that whole tour. I remember him coming in as a kid, and very polite, great guy. And I also remember being in the locker room with him for years after that. For years, you'd walk in, he'd be sitting there with his little DVD player watching wrestling DVDs, because he was constantly studying the business, loves the business, studies the business. That's why he's so knowledgeable and so passionate. And did I think back then that one day he and I would both be out of WWE and he would be running this company and I'd be working for him? No, I didn't think about that. I also didn't think about that when Brandy came in Knoxville, Tennessee, and they said, hey, there's a new ring announcer you need to train, and met Brandy and worked with her. I had no idea that.
Wow, what an interesting connection.
Down the road, when they said, hey, we're going to need a ring announcer for this, that Brandy would go to bat for me. And, I had no idea. I could never have expected any of this. I really thought I was done with wrestling. So to be back and to be a part of something so incredible, something that fans can get behind, because I know what it's like. Past 5 years, I've sat back and watched all the wrestling that's out there, and I know what it's like to be a wrestling fan, again, sitting at home, just wanting to be entertained when you turn on wrestling. So, fans, no more waiting, no more wondering, no more worrying. AEW starts tonight. AEW Dynamite, TNT, and it's going to be explosive.
Thank you so much. I wish you nothing but the best. Good luck tonight, and good luck continued week after week on TNT, on Fight TV as well.
Fight TV, absolutely.
With AEW Plus. Justin Roberts, everybody, thank you so much.
Don't miss all that extra content coming your way on Fight TV.
Thank you to my guests. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Join us again next time for another edition of On the Ropes with Josh Shernoff.